My name is David, and I've been married to Claire for 8 years. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. Steady jobs, a nice home, and a calendar full of family events. But inside those walls, something was breaking, something so subtle that most people would never notice until it was too late. It wasn't loud fights or dramatic betrayals. It was silence. It was distance. It was her lips turning away every time I leaned in for a kiss. The first time it happened, I laughed it off. She said she was tired, had a headache, wasn't in the mood. I told myself marriage has seasons, that passion comes and goes, and love is bigger than little rejections. But the second time, the third time, the 10th time, it began to eat at me. A kiss isn't just a kiss. It's a signal. It's reassurance that you're wanted, that you're still seen. Without it, I felt invisible. One evening, after dinner, I leaned across the couch to kiss her goodnight. She shifted, just slightly, and offered me her cheek. I froze there for a second, lips grazing skin that used to welcome me but now felt like stone. I pulled back, forcing a smile, pretending it didn't matter. Inside, I felt the sting of something I couldn't put into words. The pattern continued. Each night I would reach out and each night she would refuse. Sometimes with an excuse. Sometimes with silence. I kept insisting, hoping persistence would remind her of what we once had. But every refusal pushed me further away from the man I used to be, the confident, hopeful husband who believed in us. Last night, when she turned away yet again, something inside me broke. Not in anger, not in rage, but in clarity. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't insist. I simply said, "Good night," and rolled onto my side of the bed. The weight of her rejection pressed down on me, but for the first time I didn't try to fight it. I let it sink in. This morning I woke up early. The house was quiet, sunlight just starting to filter through the curtains. I looked at her sleeping face and realized the truth I had been avoiding. She had already made her decision. Maybe not out loud, maybe not with words, but with every refusal, she was telling me where I stood. And now it was my turn to make a decision. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, replaying our years together. The laughter, the road trips, the dreams we once shared. But those memories felt like old photographs. Beautiful but belonging to a time that no longer existed. Today I knew I couldn't keep pretending. Today, I decided that if she wouldn't open her heart to me, I would stop leaving mine on the doorstep, waiting. I didn't storm out of the house. I didn't pack bags in the middle of the night. That would have been too easy, too dramatic, and I wasn't interested in making a scene. Instead, I made my decision quietly, the way you close a book you've read 100 times and finally realize the ending will never change. At lunch, I called my friend Mark. He's the kind of man who listens more than he talks, and for years I'd brushed off his questions about how things were at home. This time, I told him the truth. I didn't talk about affairs or screaming matches because there weren't any. I told him about the silence, about the way a missing kiss could feel like a knife, about how absence could hurt worse than anger. Mark didn't give me advice. He just said, "Sounds like you already know what you need to do." That evening, Claire came home from work. She looked tired, distracted, scrolling through her phone while dropping her purse on the table. I asked how her day was, and she gave me a short answer without looking up. I wanted to scream, to demand why she had pulled so far away from me. But instead, I just observed her the way a stranger might. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't hostile. She was simply gone. After dinner, I didn't reach across the couch. I didn't lean in for a kiss. I didn't insist, didn't beg, didn't try to spark something that clearly no longer lived in her. Instead, I excused myself, went into the study, and opened my laptop. The decision I had made that morning solidified into action. I began researching apartments, not too far from work, modest but comfortable. I contacted a lawyer, not because I was angry, but because I knew I needed clarity and protection. I even wrote a short note, not to leave dramatically on the counter, but to remind myself, you deserve to be chosen, not tolerated. When I returned to the living room, she glanced up briefly. "You're quiet tonight," she said, almost absent-mindedly. I looked at her, really looked, and realized she hadn't noticed how many nights I had been quiet. She hadn't noticed how many times I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to act normal. That was the final confirmation I needed. The next morning, I didn't ask for a kiss. I didn't try to hold her hand. I didn't chase after scraps of affection. Instead, I made myself breakfast, poured a second cup of coffee for her, and placed it on the counter without a word. Then I grabbed my briefcase and walked out the door, not as a husband waiting for change, but as a man moving forward. Maybe one day she'll realize what was lost. Maybe she'll understand that the absence of small gestures can end a marriage more surely than shouting ever could. But by then, it will be too late. My decision wasn't about punishment. It was about survival. For years, I thought a kiss was just a kiss. Now I know it was everything. And when it disappeared, so did we.